Well, I'm really fascinated about this idea of using your imagination in your walk with God, in and within discipleship. And I'm fascinated by this because I've noticed how, let's just say, worry can hijack my imagination. It can keep me up at night. It can have my thoughts directed in a certain way that I just feel like, God did not give me an imagination to be used in that way. That I really believe that He gave me this organ of belief to interact with Him in a daily way. Another way I've noticed that the imagination can be thwarted in an unhealthy way is through shame. And that's just something I wanted to jump online and talk about real quick. I recall about, this was 10 or 15 years ago. I was a young pastor at a local church here, and it was Easter Sunday. And I don't exactly remember how everything unfolded, but my part in that Easter Sunday, whether it was teaching or just being there, just didn't go well. And I think Easter, you want it to be special. A lot of people come. And my part I just don't feel like I was present and there. So on the way home, I was driving down Battleground. My family had taken another car home. And so I had about a 20-minute ride home. And I just remember evaluating with my imagination, just kind of reviewing how the morning went. And I think there is a place for self-criticism and being constructive and wanting to do things really good the next time. But somewhere along the way, I crossed a line. And I crossed the line of healthy self-criticism and self-hatred. And I know a lot of people can't relate to this, but as I think back on that, my imagination and the shame of not measuring up came together in a very ugly way. And I just remember thinking, man, if I were better, or if I had better skills, then I would have had a better outcome. And so in my visual mind, I was rehearsing how the morning went, and I started to have this sense of remorse, and my imagination was being misused. And all of a sudden, I started to have this anger towards myself based on these thoughts. And this is just something that was very surprising to me, that in my mind, I started to cuss myself. And as I was doing that in my mind, it actually came out of my mouth that I literally cussed myself out. And it's Easter, and I'm a pastor. So all of that to me was using my imagination in such a wrong way of reviewing those thoughts, what was happening. And it's like, man, if that can be so powerful, why can't we use our imagination with discipleship, with putting our mind in God's presence in that moment? And that's what I did as I was riding down Battleground. And this was a long time ago, but I do remember being so stirred up that those words came out of my mouth, and I began the process of really factoring God's presence in and His thoughts merging into my thoughts. There's this great story in Mark 14. I won't go into it. I encourage you to check it out. It's where Mary of Bethany anoints Jesus with a very expensive ointment. And it's an interesting story because when she broke that ointment, which was very valuable, and anointed Jesus' head, she was pointing to the coming death of Christ, which I think delighted the Lord that she saw that. But what happened there was so interesting. The others at the table, and my understanding was it was the disciples that were there, they became indignant. They became so angry at her. And that word really is, indignant was to mean greatly displeased, angered, even painfully so. And so they came at her, and I love what Jesus said. Jesus said, leave her alone. Another way of saying it is release her. And I can just see him, and maybe the body language was there, maybe not, stepping in between their words and her, stepping in, facing them, but facing her, and coming in, cutting off those harsh words. And I just think of, the visual of that. Walter Brueggemann is a theologian, and he is an advocate for memorizing Scripture. He's like, memorize Scripture so you can carry it with you. But he also says, memorize moments of Scripture. And that is a moment that I really want to memorize, when Jesus came between those harsh words and her, so that I can carry that, so that I can access that in my imagination. Because my imagination and shame, that is not a good partnership. I would like my imagination to have more of a partnership with memorizing moments of Scripture, because that frees me up and that offers me a different way to think. And sure enough, after that, Jesus looked to her and basically said, "You have done a beautiful thing." And before all those people and all those disciples, Jesus said, when my story is told, she will be remembered. Her story will be told as well, which I think is a powerful affirmation that Jesus offered her in replacement. And that's a key word, in replacement of these indignant words coming at her. So in the car ride home, it was as if Jesus was with me and he was able to engage my thoughts. And it was as if, and this sounds so weird, I know it does, but man, this is real to me. It's as if he came and stepped in between those harsh words that I had towards myself. That he almost was saying to this shame, leave him alone. He has put himself out there. He has done a beautiful thing. And that just, I don't remember super clearly, but that just taught me an important lesson that I continue today. And that is when shame is exposed, like it was there, when shame is exposed, it begins to lose its power. And that's a takeaway for me. And just when shame starts to infiltrate my daily imagination and my visual thought life, I must expose it and name it. And that's where it begins to lose its power, so that it can be replaced, so that a new thought can come in. And that's where I think memorizing moments and using this idea of Jesus stepping in between those people and those harsh thoughts. So it is naming, and then it is replacing. It is using our imagination for our spiritual walk with Christ. It is having a biblical, discipled imagination. And that is extremely important. And I think that's why I feel like I have something to say with this, because what happened that day, that Easter day, as I got home, I felt a little bit more released. I felt free. It was okay that I didn't do great, or whatever that is, because I was able to be home and be present to my kids, to love my neighbor, and to love others well. And I think that's why we need to focus on freeing up our heart and freeing up our imagination, because our greatest challenge and command is to love our neighbors or as we love ourselves. So that's what I have to share with you today. I hope that you can look at that Mark 14, slow down your reading, let those words really infiltrate and inform your imagination today, that Jesus turns to you with words of love. Man, that is just such good news, and I'm excited to share that with you. If you have a similar story, or if you have thoughts or things that you'd like to add to this, please comment, and I hope you have a great weekend.